All right, if you have ever had the day from hell, the week from hell, this episode is for you. In this episode, I am going to literally walk you through one of the easiest, simplest systems that I have created. It's called the 4 Ps to help you in the moment, get you out of a state of chaos, stress, living in your head, and get you back into present time, into your body. This is gonna feel more grounded, more calm. You're gonna be able to make more logical decisions and problem solve. You're gonna approach your day with more clarity, and it's gonna happen in an instant. You're gonna love this one. I'm so excited for you. Enjoy. Okay, so like I said, in this episode, I'm going to share with you the 4 Ps. This is an instantaneous way to get you from a place of feeling like you were all over the place, perhaps living in your head in a state of stress and chaos. I literally had this happen to me the other day. I used this system. I got myself out. The system works. It's free. It's easy. It's attainable in the busyness of your life, and you're going to love it. So this is something that you're going to want to either take notes on. You can always, of course, pause the episode and come back and re-listen to this. I'm also later in the episode going to share another tool that goes along with one of these Ps that's going to help simplify it. There's a printable with that. So make sure you hang on for that, because that's going to really help you walk through these steps and make them something that you're going to remember forever, so that any time in your day when you need to access this, you can. Okay, so I want to start by sharing a bit of a personal story of what happened to me earlier this week, how I use this system, and then I'm going to literally walk you through each step of the system. By the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly what to do in a moment to help completely change and shift the way that your day feels. The reality of this is that these steps take a matter of 5 minutes at the most. So like I said, this is super attainable in even the busiest of days. The other thing I really want you to realize, because I think especially as women, we forget how powerful taking these simple moments to ourselves can be, not only for us, but this is going to literally impact every single person around you. So I want you to just pause for a minute and take a second and think about how you show up in the world when you are feeling anxious, stressed, frustrated, overwhelmed. Think about how you show up at work. Think about how you show up for your loved ones. Think about your ability or inability to rationally problem solve and get to solutions clearly and quickly. Think about if you have children, how do you walk in at the end of your day to your children? So if you can't take this 5 minutes for you, sometimes I know it's easier for us as women to leverage this and make it about everybody else. So every single one of these steps could literally take you 5 minutes, some even less than that. And again, this will completely shift how you feel. Okay, so let's get after it. So I just want to share a personal story, because I think for a lot of women, you can really relate to this, what happened to me the other day. Okay, so the other night, I just had one of those nights. And whether it was hormones or stress or God knows what, but every single time that I woke up in the middle of the night with a thought, it was like worst case scenario for every single one of those thoughts. Even though in the light of day, I could realize that those things weren't actually that stressful. But I know you have experienced this. I know you've had those nights where either you thought about something from the day before and you know you made it worse than it needed to be, or you stressed, I like to call it future tripping. You stressed about things that needed to happen later that day or later that week and made them bigger than they needed to be. So I realized what I was doing was not rational. However, I got myself stuck in a state of anxiety and stress. And I'm literally going to share the neurology behind this soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But I literally got stuck in like a loop of, I know that this isn't rational. I know that me stressing about what I fed my kids at dinner last night is not going to make or break anybody's life. But I am sitting here this morning feeling like the world is crumbling around me. And I think for any women listening to this, if you're starting to have any shifts in your hormones, perimenopause, or anything like that, I think these things tend to become more common around that time in our lives, because this is not something that I have dealt with in the past. That being said, I literally leaned on the system that I created. And again, I just want to keep driving this home. This stuff works. It's so easy. I did little bits of this, like micro doses of this throughout my day. By the end of the day, I felt 100% back to me. I was able to be there for my family. I was able to just access a state of like harmony and calm that just felt better for myself and everyone around me. So let's jump into the system. This is a 4-parter. If you can take notes, great. If not, you can always go back and re-listen to this episode, so don't stress. Okay, so the 4 steps, I'm going to explain them all. Then we're literally going to go one by one. I'm going to give you really easy examples that you can implement into any life for each of these steps. And I'm also going to give you some extra tools and resources in case you want to take any of the steps deeper. Lastly, I'm going to share some of the science and neurology, really, really cool stuff behind this, just enough for you to understand you're literally switching what's going on in your brain, impacting your hormones and all of your physiology through these 5-minute steps. Very cool. Each of these steps starts with a P so that it makes it really easy for you to remember. So the first step is about getting perspective by becoming the observer. I'm going to go back and explain everything about these steps in a minute, but first I want to walk you through them. The first step is gaining perspective by becoming the observer. The second step is play. The third step is getting into present time. And the fourth step is about practicing nervous system regulation. So each one of these, again, is a matter of 5 minutes, going to completely shift your day. So let's just tackle them one by one. The first step, getting perspective by becoming the observer. If any of you have read or you were in our first book for Best Friends Book Nook Book Club, we read a book by Michael Singer called Untethered Soul. This is an incredible resource for this step, so I highly recommend it. I will link it for you below so it's easy for you to access. This is very simply creating distance between yourself and the emotions that you're feeling. So I want to be very clear that this is not about not feeling the emotions, because I'm very big on taking the time to experience whatever it is that we're feeling and not distracting ourselves out of it the way that we have become so good as women at doing. But this is about creating distance. So think about, in my example that I gave, like I woke up in the morning and I was just feeling anxious and stressed before the day even began. So by becoming the observer, we can get out of like our emotional tizzy and get into a bit of a more logical state. We become the watcher of our emotions instead of the experiencer of them. So think about this analogy. If you are going through a challenge in your home, relationship, work, you go out, you grab a girlfriend, you get coffee, you go for a walk, whatever. Think about your girlfriend is able to logically walk you through your challenge and oftentimes will help share clarity from her perspective because she's sitting outside, right? There's that great saying that you can't read the label from inside the jar. And so this is about becoming almost like your inner girlfriend, creating perspective and becoming the watcher and seer of your emotions. So in this case with me in the morning, my husband was next to me. I was literally able to create a distance and say, this is so crazy. I'm literally beating myself up about feeding our kids wheat last night. Like, we're a gluten-free home. Our kids just don't do that great with wheat products. Nobody does. But I was literally like in a cycle of stress because I fed our kids wheat the night before. Are you kidding me? Like, it's okay. But we've all had these moments where these irrational thoughts and these silly things become huge because we let them. So in this moment, I created distance. I became the observer and I watched almost like from outside, like, look at what I'm doing. This is so silly. So take another example. You're stressing about perhaps, I don't know, something a coworker did, and you're feeling like all the feels. Like, of course she did this. She always shows up this way. So often we reference past behaviors, right? So it's not just about that moment. It's about all the times that this person showed up. We create a story in our head. Or maybe it's about your spouse or your partner. Of course, they didn't do the dishes. They never do the dishes. Resentful, angry, all these feelings. Like, what if we can zoom out, become the observer, take a little bit of distance between the heavy emotions that we're feeling and what the actual situation was, and watching the feelings that we're choosing to create around this situation. So creating perspective by becoming the observer is one of the easiest, quickest ways to start to, again, I don't want to say not feel the emotions because it's very important that we feel them, but it just gets them to a state of where we can actually make logical choices, decisions. We can get to a place of more clarity and calm and ease. And I actually want to start to talk about some of the neurology and the power behind doing this in this next P, because it can also relate to this observer step. So if you want to learn more about the power of becoming an observer, I highly, highly recommend Michael Singer's book. It is so good. It's called Untethered Soul. Again, I'll link up below. But becoming the watcher of our life and becoming the seer of our emotions is one of the most powerful things we can do. It literally doesn't even actually take any time. It's just a decision and a conscious awareness of how we're looking at our challenges as we're experiencing them. Okay, the second P is so fun. The second P is all about play. And although this step is really simple, I will touch on the fact that it's not always easy, because when is the last time, honestly, as a woman, that you carved out time for play? Do you even know what you would do to be playful anymore? So I'm going to help walk you through some great ideas, some things that I do in my life. This is super easy to do if you have kids, and also super accessible even if you don't. But I feel like kids are a constant reminder of how powerful play is in our lives. But first, I want to start by touching on some of the really, really powerful neurology behind this. I love neuroscience. I love understanding the brain. And I'm going to simplify how powerful play is in shifting our neurochemistry. Our bodies are brilliant, and they basically function in order to ensure our survival, right? So when we have a stressful situation, our body basically is taught to become very alert through a state called fight or flight, which many of us are very familiar with, because I think a lot of women live in a state of fight or flight today. And the purpose of that is to increase our awareness and decide, do we need to fight for our lives? Do we need to flee the scene? Or how do we need to respond to the environment in order to ensure our survival? So you think about, like, if you are sitting at work or sitting at home relaxing and you hear a loud noise, what happens? You shrug your shoulders, your eyes get really big, and you turn to the stimulus. And that's to quickly learn how to respond to your environment. When we see that there is not a perceived threat, so, oh, someone just dropped a book behind me, it's not an earthquake, our nervous system should calm itself and regulate itself. And typically in a situation like that, it would, right? So you hear a noise, check for the threat, no threat, body calms. But what happens when we're in these chronic states of fight or flight? What happens when our job is stressful? Or maybe our home life is stressful. And so it's not just a loud sound that's triggering us, it's the constant environment that is keeping us in this sustained state of fight or flight. What happens is we take the majority of our brain activity from our frontal cortex, which is where we're very logical, great at decision making. This is like the CEO of our brain. When we are in our prefrontal cortex, our frontal cortex, our neocortex, we are very logical. We can kind of stand back, be in charge, problem solve, tell everybody where they need to go, what they need to do, figure things out instantly. When we're living in this chronic state of fight or flight, we trigger what's called our amygdala. Our amygdala is something that stimulates and regulates all of our stress hormones and chemicals. And what can actually happen is something called amygdala hijack. And I'm actually going to share an article below, because this is a really powerful thing. I want you to know this phrase. I want you to understand this phrase, so that when you are perhaps feeling stressed, you wake up in one of these days feeling anxious, feeling stressed, or throughout your day, you're just in a state of stress that you can't get out of. I want you to maybe anchor or lean on the phrase amygdala hijack. So what happens is, if we are in a situation and there is no threat to our survival, but we are experiencing what's called amygdala hijack, our body is basically perceiving that we are in a constant threat. And so we are physiologically reacting as if we need to run for our lives. So cardiovascular system is activated. Neurochemicals of cortisol, adrenaline are released, and these don't serve us in these situations. For instance, let's go back to my stress about what I fed the kids. I was in a state of amygdala hijack. Like, did I need to be releasing epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, adrenaline? No, because I didn't need to run for my life. But the fact of the matter is that I was in amygdala hijack. So what happens is these states is it can feel really difficult to calm our nervous system, because our body is literally like stuck in this fight or flight. Play is one of the easiest ways to get your brain and your body out of amygdala hijack. I want you to think of, in these states of fight or flight or stress, I want you to think of the phrase amygdala hijack. And the second you think of amygdala hijack, I want you to think the solution to that is play. What play does is it gets us into 100% present time. It gets us into a state of flow. It gets us into a state of being mindful, right? So we've all heard how powerful mindfulness is. So you could also do meditation, something like that. I'll make a whole other video on that in the future. But for today, I want to keep it fun, and I want to focus on play. And play is literally going to get us back into that CEO place of our brain. So again, let's keep this simple. Let's keep it easy. Let's keep it attainable. And let's incorporate 5 minutes of play at any point during our day. And if you're going to sit here and tell me you don't have 5 minutes, I'm going to call BS, because I can guarantee you, and I'm saying this out of pure love, I can guarantee you there's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes at some point throughout your day, and probably if you're being honest with yourself, multiple points throughout your day where you're grabbing your phone, where you're catching up on emails, you're scrolling social, you're scrolling the news. You need something mindless because you're so tired of feeling so stressed. Or you're catching up on laundry, you're catching up on the dishes. The reality of that stuff is that it's never ending. So why not take those 5 minutes, at least one of them, and get yourself into a better state? Get yourself back into your CEO, because what happens when we spend more time there, everything in our life is going to feel easier. You've got trouble with your teenage daughter, getting in your CEO is going to make it easier to handle that than if you're not. If you're in a state of amygdala hijack and you come home and your teenage daughter is emotional and stressed and feeling crazed, and you are too, can you actually help anyone? So again, taking this 5 minutes is not just for you, it's for every single person around you. Okay, so now to help solve the actual problem, what do you do for play when it's been so long in your life since you've done this? I will share some of my favorite things for play. So play can be physical, or if you need something restful, there can be really chill play activities too. The whole goal with play, and it's so interesting because there is so much research out there on the power of play for children, but not the power of play for adults. And we need it just as much, if not more. So if you look up things like research behind play with children, they'll talk about how powerful it is in getting kids out of a state of stress and how helpful it is in ensuring that they can regulate their emotions. Does all the same things to us, by the way. It's going to talk about how play helps stimulate endorphins, our feel-good chemicals. And it's going to talk about the importance of free play. And I want you to remember this here. So research with kids in the power of play is going to talk about free play. What is free play? Free play is uninterrupted play. Free play, if you have children, it's when you're witnessing them and they've just lost all sense of time and they are completely engaged in what they're doing. This is when you as a parent have to step back and you just get to watch, you don't interfere, right? That is free play. And that's what I want you to do in the second P of play. So this play is not about doing a little and then checking an email, or kind of there, but not fully there. This is the goal is to completely lose yourself in this 5 minutes. If you are a control freak, if you are nervous about time, set a timer so you don't have to think about it and you can just let go of that 5 minutes. So physical things for play. I was talking to my friend this morning. She's feeling super stressed. She has a basketball court near her. She was like, I'm going to grab a ball and go shoot hoops for 5 minutes. I'm learning how to skateboard. I get on the board and I just play around on the skateboard. I cannot not focus when I'm playing on my skateboard because I'll get hurt. Here's a great way to know what you want to do for play. Have you ever been driving in your car? Life is busy, life is crazy. You have no time for yourself and you drive by and you see someone doing something and your body, your heart yearns to do the same thing. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but that used to happen to me whenever I saw someone riding their bike. It's like, oh my God, that person looks so free. Play for me, riding my bike is a great way to engage in play. I feel so happy on my bike. There's also very powerful neuroscience behind why that is. Riding our bikes is one of the only activities that activates the left and the right side of our brain at the same time. When we do that, we increase activity in something in our brain called the corpus callosum, which creates overall balance and activates the CEO. So riding your bike is a great way to engage in play. We have our bikes in the garage. I'll literally do a 5-minute loop around the neighborhood. It doesn't have to be long. Remember, the key is to make it easy and attainable. Another thing you can do for play, so it doesn't always have to be physical. If you're someone who just needs a break, needs to chill, how about having a puzzle? Can you get a fun puzzle and find a spot in your house where there's a safe table, you can just leave it out, and that's where you can go for those 5 minutes of escaping. Set a timer, completely lose yourself in the puzzle. Don't think about anything else. Be fully engaged in that free play. Get out of your amygdala and into your frontal cortex. Art. Art is so playful. Coloring, painting, ceramics, pottery. These are things, you can go as far. In some of my other episodes, I've talked about macro versus micro self-care. We can apply this to play. Macro play could be going and signing up for a local pottery class at an art studio. And then your micro could be, I don't know, do you get a wheel at home and you spin for 5 minutes? Something like that. Or macro could be going and taking a painting class on a Saturday for an hour. Your micro could be doing a smaller version of that at home, right? So there's macro dose and micro dose. So in this episode, the 4 Ps I'm talking about, these are micro doses so that they're literally accessible throughout your day. Okay, so I would love to hear so far what you're thinking. We're halfway through the Ps. Any comments, any questions, any feedback? Which one are you going to try? Let me know in the comments below or in the reviews. I would love, love, love to hear. Keep in mind that also helps inspire other women to do the same. So please share your wins. Whatever you go out and do today, let me know in the comments below. Okay, the third P, this one is all about presence. Okay, and presence I feel like may have been one of the most cliche and overused words of the last couple of years. And I think it can be really easy for us to just kind of zoom over it because what do? How do we attain presence in our busy life? So just like all the other steps that I'm sharing in this episode, I want to take this zoomed out concept to make it really easy. And I want you to literally walk away from this with like a handful of ideas of how you can access present time consciousness throughout your day. The beautiful thing about present time consciousness, you think about it very literally, we're in present time. So much of our feelings of anxiety and stress is when we're thinking about the future or the past. We all know this. So how can you spend more time in present consciousness? This one, I think for a lot of women can feel really confusing. So I really wanted to give you simple tools to bring this home to make it very easy for you to access. So I'm going to drop below a free gift for you. It is the connection code, and I'm going to walk you through a bit of it now. But I also highly recommend to click on that download, fill everything out, use that as your guide so that you can literally know exactly what to do in each of these steps for you to get present in the moment. So again, the other day when I was feeling all crazed, woke up anxious, stressed, I, throughout the day, used the connection code. Jason, my husband, was cracking up because he saw how my day started. And I was laughing. I was like, this connection code works so well. Like he literally watched me shift throughout the day. Keep in mind, I had a full work day. I had 3 kids to run around after school. I had dinner to make. I had groceries to get. I had tons of laundry because we had just gotten back from a trip. You can squeeze these things into every single day. I can't say that enough. Sorry, I keep saying that, but it's so important for you to understand. Okay, so how to get present. I have 5 steps in the gift for you below on the connection code. And these are concepts. And when you walk through the connection code, you're going to go through each one of these concepts and create things for you to do under each category. For instance, one of the steps of the connection code is getting in nature. So the other day when I was feeling crazed, didn't know what to do with myself, literally was living in amygdala hijack, I went out in nature, left my phone at home, went for a 5-minute walk, came back a better version of myself. So getting in nature, getting out into the world is one step of the connection code. It's all about expansion. It's all about ditching your digital devices and going and connecting with nature. We instantly can get into an easier state of alignment, groundedness in ourself, and connection through nature. So that's one of the steps of the connection code. Another step is all about getting into our heart. So this is usually when you're craving something more low-key and nurturing. This might mean literally adding 5 minutes to your shower and just sitting there and letting it drip on you. I know a lot of people say they get their best ideas in the shower. That's because for many people, we are in a present state in the shower. We're not worried about the past or the future. This is the beauty of present time consciousness. So getting into our heart and nurturing, that's another step of the connection code. Getting into our body, that's a great step in the connection code. So the other day, again, it sounds like I was doing these things all day. These were little microdoses throughout my day that got me back into my frontal cortex. Getting into your body is the third step of the connection code. So what did I do? I had a lot of these beautiful chemicals that put us into a ramped up state or fight or flight. What did I do with them? I went and pushed it and I did sprints. Probably honestly was gone from my home for 3 minutes. 30-second sprint, 30-second recovery, 30-second sprint, 30-second recovery. I felt amazing after because I gave those stress hormones somewhere to go. I channeled them. So getting in our body. Another one is connecting with the divine. So for anyone who has a spiritual practice, this is about connecting to something greater than ourselves. Sometimes we need to zoom out. Like we get so stuck in our problems that we forget all the beauty around us. We actually forget like we're just a blip here on this huge planet, flying through outer space, like sometimes getting out and connecting with something greater than us helps put things in perspective. So there's another step. You can download it all through that free gift I have for you. It's called the connection code. With that, you'll actually get a video walking you through the whole process. You'll get a printout. In the video, I'm going to walk you through how to figure out steps for you within each part of the connection code. Every step of the connection code will get you into present time. Okay. Another thing I want to touch on, because I know in the back of your head, you're like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time. I've told you a bazillion times, this only takes 5 minutes. So I'm not going to say that again. But the one thing I will say about present time is that this is the one state, this is the one place where we can be, where time literally expands. So what's going to happen is you're going to take these 5 minutes. At first, you might feel like, how can I even let go of this 5 minutes? I don't have time. I have a full day. Maybe you set the timer so you can try not to think about the time. You're going to realize you get that time back tenfold. Time literally expands when we're in present time. It's a beautiful thing. You've just got to feel it. Promise me, trust me, you're going to love it. The fourth P is about practicing nervous system regulation. What do I mean by that? How many of us are very familiar with being in a state of fight or flight? How many of us live the majority of our days in go, go, go? That would be stress mode, right? Stress, chaos, high speed, rushing. In this step, we are going to practice nervous system regulation. We are going to start to practice getting our body in a state of calm and ease. So honestly, this might be something that's a little bit trickier for you to drop into during your day if you're having one of these days and this is new to you. I'm going to talk to you about how to start to incorporate that in a minute. But what I want to say is the more you're listening to my episodes and the more you're hearing me talk about these kinds of things, it will become easier. So the best way to start to incorporate this into your life while you're getting used to it is in the morning. So what I want you to do, and there's so much I want to share about this step, I'm really excited, but what I want you to start with thinking about is simply 5 minutes in your morning to practice nervous system regulation. So this can look like something as simple as waking up, and if you're someone who drinks coffee or tea in the morning, literally sitting with that coffee or tea and doing nothing else. Not checking your emails, not scrolling your socials, not making your to-do list, hopefully not waking up into a chaotic home. If so, set your alarm earlier. This is best done when your home is asleep, when the world is asleep, and this is your quiet time for the day. I will say that something that is going to happen at the beginning of this process is it's going to feel really weird. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. It's going to feel like you're doing it wrong. That's okay. Practicing nervous system regulation is really a two-parter. So the first thing about it is we're making it familiar so that later in our day we can find that calm nervous system. And it's also about reframing. Think about this. How many times in your life have you felt perhaps a space and time where you didn't need to be rushing around, where you had nothing to do? And maybe instead of using the words content or calm, you distracted yourself out of them. I know I've done this a million times in my past. So if you're someone who's used to being high speed, very busy, the reality is when these beautiful moments, when these beautiful opportunities for nervous system regulation present themselves, you're not even going to recognize them. Instead, what's going to happen is you're going to feel like you're missing something. You're going to maybe feel lost. You're going to feel down. You may even, in the past, I've labeled it as like, do I feel depressed right now? Like, what is this weird feeling of nothingness? It's calm and it's contentment. So practicing nervous system regulation is a two-parter. One, it's making it familiar, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Two, it's reframing these pockets of moments we find throughout the day. So I want you to start really using and thinking about the words calm and contentment. And I want you to find them throughout your day. If there's a moment where there's nothing going on, can you start to look at it, thank it, maybe like, oh, I'm so grateful for this calm moment. I feel so content. It's one of these things we have to reframe and like teach our body to recognize and appreciate because it's very foreign. Okay, so going back to making it familiar, Dr. Joe Dispenza is an incredible resource. I'm going to link a couple of his videos below. But I love one of these concepts he teaches about we crave what's familiar. And so it's kind of a big concept. Listen to some of his tools, but I really want to break it down for you and simplify it here. We all crave what's familiar, and for so many of us, what is familiar is a state of stress, frustration, anger, chaos. So literally what we will do is we'll wake up sometimes in this blank state. We won't feel normal. We won't feel like our day has started until we achieve that state that's familiar. When we do that, we continue to live out these patterns of, why is my life so stressful? Why am I so busy? Why am I so frustrated? Why can I never get ahead of anything? Instead, what we're going to start to do with this fourth P is make a regulated nervous system feel familiar. Right, so let's go back to that morning practice. You're going to incorporate that first 5 minutes, even 10 minutes, where you're doing nothing. Again, you can use the words calm and contentment, because at the beginning, it's going to feel really weird. It's going to feel like you're missing something. It's going to feel like, okay, I got to get going. It's going to feel like I'm doing it wrong. If you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're doing it right. What's going to happen is this feeling of nervous system regulation will start to become more familiar. And then what happens is your body will automatically start to seek that out through the day. Think of this process like you are training a new muscle. So again, like I said, it's going to feel unfamiliar. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel like you're doing it wrong. Think about if you've ever learned a new activity, if you've tried playing pickleball, or maybe you've gone to the gym and worked a new muscle. At the beginning, it feels really weird. It feels like you're not doing it right. It feels like you've really got to think about it, right, to accomplish it. Eventually, over time, you can do it subconsciously without even thinking about it. Think about driving. Think about when you first learned to drive, how deeply you had to focus on every single thing in that car. And then now it's almost frightening how subconsciously this can happen. You don't even have to think about it. That is what's going to happen with this step. So when you can start to achieve a regulated nervous system without thinking about it, what is your life going to look like? Your life is going to look like more moments of, oh, I got it all done. I have extra time. That feels calm. I feel content. That feels easy. It's going to feel like you have more time than you've ever had before. It's going to feel like you find these pockets and moments to appreciate stillness in a way that you haven't in years. It's going to feel like you have time to do it all and be it all without working so hard. Remember, we're human beings, not human doings. We are designed to have time to be. We've just forgotten about it. So once you start to make being and a regulated nervous system more familiar to you, you are going to subconsciously seek it out, find it, live that way, resulting in a completely different life that feels happier, easier, more calm, more balanced, not just for you, but for every single person around you. So I want to ask you now, and feel free to comment below, why would you not do any of these? What would be stopping you? What would be getting in your way? I would love to hear, because perhaps I'll make a future episode to help get you through. Okay, I will tell you, as a busy mom of 3, running our household, helping run our companies, working full time, I have implemented these tools and tips. And not only do I have more time in my life, I have more calm, I have more peace. I definitely still have these days where I wake up in these states, but the goal isn't to not experience these things anymore. The goal is, and this is so important, and I want to finalize with this message here, the goal is to know how to get back into alignment, how to get back feeling your best self as quickly as possible. And that's what this episode is all about. I'm so glad you're here. I cannot wait to hear what you decide to do with these. I would love to hear in your comments. I'd love to hear in the reviews. As always, be sure to share and pass along this episode with someone else in your life, because I know you thought of someone as you're listening to this that needs this information as well. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. I will continue to share these free tips and tools that will help you not only connect more deeply with yourself, but with other women around you. Thank you for being here. Enjoy.